So yes, it's true, I'm finally getting rid of my Canon EOS RP. And don't worry, I took the camera out of the box before throwing it. That was just for dramatic effect. Okay, so I've had this Canon EOS RP for almost 2 years, and for 2 years it's been the only camera that I've owned. So I've used it for everything, all of my professional gigs, all of my wedding shoots, all of my YouTube videos, all of my travel gigs and all my travel photography, literally everything. And after 2 years of using it and basically mastering this camera, I feel like I finally hit that imaginary gear wall. Okay, so gear wall is a term I just totally made up, and it's basically when you've kind of mastered whatever piece of gear you have and now you're super aware of everything that it has to offer, and it starts to limit you in ways that you didn't think about when you first initially purchased whatever piece of gear or equipment it was, and we'll definitely get into that. But I'm at that point where there's things I want to do and I can't do them because the limitations are just built into this camera, so I kind of had to look elsewhere. So sadly, after 2 years, I'm saying goodbye to the only camera I've ever known and loved, the Canon EOS RP. Now, you're probably wondering, what am I recording on? What did I get? Well, it was quite a bit of an upgrade. I finally got myself a Canon R5. Yeah, if you know anything about camera pricing, then the Canon R5 is almost 5 times more expensive than the Canon EOS RP, so it's quite the upgrade. It boasts a 45 megapixel full frame sensor, and it's capable of recording in 8K RAW internally. And yes, I'm aware of the overheating issues with the Canon R5. Please don't spam the comments saying that the camera overheats, or I'm gonna get into that. So let's talk about what those limitations were in the Canon EOS RP that ultimately led me to upgrading to the Canon R5. And I feel like this is an important discussion to be had because a lot of beginner photographers and filmmakers like I was when I purchased this camera will gravitate towards the Canon EOS RP since it is Canon's cheapest mirrorless full frame camera, and honestly it might be the cheapest full frame mirrorless camera you can get anywhere, so it's an amazing option for all beginners to start on this camera. But once you've had it for a while, you're gonna want to upgrade to one of the more professional bodies that Canon or one of the other brands offers. So let's talk about what the limitations were and why I specifically chose the R5 to replace the EOS RP. So let's start off by talking about dynamic range. Now, dynamic range on the EOS RP, to be honest, was pretty bad, and it just kind of suffered. So it made it difficult to retain details in both the highlights and the shadows a lot of the times, and I found myself really underexposing shadows in order to get any detail in the highlights, to the point where my details in the shadows would kind of be lost. So dynamic range was not ideal. And just to give you a quick example of dynamic range, if you take a look at my last YouTube video, which I'll have playing right now, and you take a look at the top right corner of your screen, you'll notice that you can't really see the drones in the corner. There's not any detail in those shadows. But if we flip back to the footage from this video from the Canon R5, which I'm recording on right now in C-Log 3, you'll notice that you can finally see the details in those shadows, and you're able to see the drones on my wall, which is important to me. You know, I took some time to hang those drones up and make it all look pretty and nice for you guys, and I also enjoy being able to see those extra details in my videos. Now, I do want to say from a photography perspective, I loved the Canon EOS RP. I didn't have any issues with it from a photography perspective. I think the 26 megapixel full frame CMOS sensor is more than enough for most photographers. It was usually the video side of it that made me want to pull my hair out when I was using the Canon EOS RP. Highest resolution on this camera was 4K. Now, that's a really good max resolution, but unfortunately it came with a terrible 1.6x crop. Also, the dual pixel autofocus did not work in 4K, which basically made the camera completely unusable in that video format, and you were basically forced to record in 1080p. Also, the only form of stabilization on this camera was electronic stabilization. Now, for most cameras, that's usually not a big deal. For example, the Canon R5C only has electronic stabilization as well and no IBIS, very similar to the EOS RP. However, the electronic stabilization specific to the EOS RP was completely garbage, even when you turned up the mode all the way up to enhanced. The footage was just super shaky and basically made you want to throw up. Now, the combination of this 1.6x crop in 4K, the lack of dual pixel autofocus in 4K, and then finally extremely shaky footage made video a real chore with the Canon EOS RP. Now, you may be shocked to learn that all of my YouTube videos in the last year and change were all recorded in 1080p on the EOS RP, and then I would upscale them to 4K. And as a lot of you guys have mentioned and commented on my YouTube videos, the quality and the production quality of the videos have been really good. But that's mostly due to my knowledge of lighting and composition and how I've set up my environment to make the videos look good. So in a controlled environment, the Canon EOS RP is definitely capable of producing great results, but that's due to my skill. I'm having to work extra hard to compensate for the lack of the camera's features. Also, there was no log profile on the Canon EOS RP, so I was having to record in a standard profile and then having to color grade over that. So just taking a look at my last YouTube video again, this is what the footage looks like out of the EOS RP before I edit it. And you'll notice that once again, a lot of detail is lost due to the lack of dynamic range. Now, if you flip back to this video that you're watching right now on the Canon R5 recorded in C-Log 3, this is what it looks like before I edit it. And you'll notice that the image is way more flatter and there's way more detail retained. And this is how you get that improved dynamic range and also way more flexibility in post to color grade however you want. And probably the last thing that was holding me back in terms of video on the Canon EOS RP was 8-bit color. Now, have you ever looked at your favorite YouTubers and wonder how did they get their colors to look so good and why their LUTs and their transformation LUTs and everything transform and apply so much better to their videos? Well, it's most likely because they're using a 10-bit color camera similar to the Canon R5, which would just be impossible using the EOS RP. So the Canon R5 is really going to give me an opportunity to step up my color grading skills and really enhance my colors and the quality of my videos. Finally, I use my cameras to make money. I use it as part of my business. And to be honest, I was pretty hesitant offering clients non-drone video services with the EOS RP depending on what scenario or what situation they wanted to shoot in, just because I knew the limitations of the camera and I knew that the quality and the end product wouldn't be the best that I can possibly produce. So now that I have the Canon R5, I'm also able to open up a new line of service within my business, offering video services to clients in basically any scenario, and that'll really definitely open up a lot of new opportunities for myself and my filmmaking career. Now, I know a lot of you guys will say, what about the overheating issues on the Canon R5? And I hear you. Just because of that reason, I almost picked the Canon R5C, but ultimately I decided that the IBIS was more important to me, and my style of video shooting is not really impacted by the overheating limits of the Canon R5. One of my favorite YouTubers, Jared Polin from Frono's Photos, uses the Canon R5 exclusively for all of his videos on his channel, and the quality looks crisp. And with the newer firmware updates, overheating issues aren't really that apparent anymore with the Canon R5, depending on what kind of lengths of time you shoot for and what kind of content you create. So you definitely have to know yourself as a filmmaker. For example, with the multiple takes and the mistakes that I made in this video, my record time in the Canon R5 is about 15 minutes right now, and there's no sign of overheating anywhere in sight, and I'm pretty much almost done recording this video. So the overheating issues aren't really the biggest deal on the Canon R5 as long as you know what kind of shooter you are. And honestly, if all else fails, just turn off the 4K HQ and you can record forever. Also, a really good tip that I learned is that if you switch the crop mode to Super 35mm or the crop mode, whatever it is, right below the full frame sensor, you can record in 4K HQ forever. So if you're willing to just move your camera back a little bit, you can get the exact same recording quality with basically unlimited record time. So I'm excited to embark on this new journey with the Canon R5. I'm excited to see if the price tag is worth it, if the camera really lives up to the hype. So far, recording this first YouTube video with the Canon R5, I've really enjoyed the experience. I love what the camera or the video quality is looking like. When I look at the mini LCD flip out screen, I'm really happy with the results so far. So let's embark on this journey and let's find out, does gear really matter? And that's it for this video. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you did, you know, hit the like button, do the subscribe thing, and let's look forward to more videos with the Canon R5. And that's it for this one. I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, keep creating.